Good morning. Let's begin with prayer. Oh, Heavenly Father, we come to you this morning, and we just thank you for being our God. Thank you for being here in our midst. And Lord, I pray that you'd give me the words to speak today. I pray that my communication would be worthy of your message and of your word. Lord, speak to our hearts today. I pray that we would open our hearts to you and to your leading. Lord, if there's something in my life, I pray that you would show me and that you would bring it up for me, that I can confess it and that I can live in victory over it. Lord, I pray for each one here that you would just be with us. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Well, this morning, again, I have just one thing to say, and you might question me as I go on and as we get into the details, but I really only have one point, and it's something that God laid on my heart to share. About a week ago, I had been thinking about the cost of discipleship and what that is and what that means. And it felt like God was saying that he wanted me to speak on that. And I was like, Lord, I can't. I'm weak in this. Can you give me something that I'm strong on that I can speak on? And it seemed like he was just saying, no, this is what I want you to talk about. And so I thought, okay, well, this coming week, this was about a week ago, so, well, this coming week, I'm going to be really diligent and really strong in this area. And as the week went on, I failed again and again. And so I stand up here today kind of trembling with fear, knowing that I am weak in this. And all I can do is give it to God and bring what he has given me to share. So please have grace for me. Some of the things I'll share are personal and part of my own weakness. And I hope that you can have grace for me in that. So the thing I want to talk about today is this. The cost of discipleship is very near. The cost of discipleship is very near. And that might seem like a fallacy, at least here in America, right? We are familiar with the idea of discipleship having a cost, and sometimes a great cost. We think about people in persecuted places who become Christians, and it might cost them their life, just like that. It might cost them their family, their jobs, their relationships, their community. It might cost them everything. It's like this mountain of cost, just huge, right? And we're familiar with that, okay? Although we don't know it personally, we're aware that it happens. And any one of us in America, at least any one of us Christians, especially here, and even more Christians in America, would, if you ask them, would you die for Christ? We would say yes, absolutely. We would die for Christ. We would give up anything for Christ. Okay, well, that's good. But do we actually face the cost? Like, Is it something we even know about? In America, you can become a Christian, and what does it cost you? Like, what does it really cost? You can still go on having your friends for the most part. You can go on having a good job. You can make money. You can have a house. You can have a car. You can have all of your things. So what is the cost of discipleship? Well, here's what Jesus says about discipleship. He says, "He who loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. And he who loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And he who does not take his cross and follow after me is not worthy of me. He who finds his life will lose it, and he who loses his life for my sake will find it." We've got all these things that Jesus says, well, if you're not willing to give these up, or if you don't give these up. In one place he says, "He who doesn't hate father and mother, and etc. more than me." Said that wrong. "He who doesn't hate father and mother, and etc. is not worthy of me." That's pretty strong, isn't it? But in America, it just seems like, well, what really do we give up? Does it really even cost anything? Jesus also said, "He who is faithful in what is least is faithful also in much. And he who is unjust in what is least is unjust also in much." If I was the devil and I wanted to create a way for people to, when people confront the idea of Christianity, and I wanted to deter them from it, one of the things I might do is make the cost of following Christ massive, like just huge. Something that they look at and they say, no, that costs too much. And they walk away. Another thing I might do, if I was the devil, is I might make it so cheap that they don't even value it. Right? There was a missionary in Mexico who was just having such a struggle selling Bibles. Or giving away Bibles. Right? And he had printed like a pallet of Bibles, these cheap Bibles. They were like $1 a piece. And they were just paperback little copies. And he couldn't give them away. People wouldn't take them. And so finally he's like, you know what, I'm going to make them as nice as I can. And he packaged them with leather, and they were expensive. And he would go and he would sell them, charge for them. And it ended up spreading that way better. The cost of Christianity in America is so cheap, we don't even value it. It's just like, whatever, it doesn't really cost me. So today I'd like to focus on the small acts of devotion. The cost of discipleship is very near. And I think I have a story that I want to go over from the Bible. And we'll see how when the cost was far out there, and it was just this idea of something that might cost a lot, where the character is like, yes, I'll do it. But then when it came here, and it was very close, and it hurt his toes, then it didn't work. Then he wasn't willing. So you can start by turning to Mark 14. And then you can put your finger in John 18. We're also going to look at that. does discipleship cost? And how far away is that cost? So discipleship does cost. Jesus tells us it does. But how far away is it? Is it something just beyond, like, oh yeah, if I had the opportunity, then I would give my life for Christ? Or is discipleship something that's here? So we're going to read over the account and focusing on the cost that Peter could have paid and didn't. So keep that in the back of your mind. So Mark 14, I believe this account is in every gospel, and I like some of the details in John 18. So we're going to start in Mark, and then we're going to move to John. So Mark 14, and we're going to start in verse 26. This is after the Passover dinner, when they have communion together, and starting in verse 26, let's read. And when they had sung a hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives. Then Jesus said to them, all of you will be made to stumble because of me this night. For it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep will be scattered. But after I have been raised, I will go before you to Galilee. Peter said to him, even if all are made to stumble, yet I will not be. Jesus said to him, assuredly I say to you that today, even this night, before the rooster crows twice, you will deny me 3 times. But he spoke more vehemently, if I have to die with you, I will not deny you. And they all said likewise. And then over to John 18, starting in verse 1. And in between here, I should note, in between here sometime, the accounts vary a little bit, but in between here sometime is when Jesus went to pray, and he said, Lord, if it be your will, I will drink this cup, I will submit to your will. And then starting in verse 1. When Jesus had spoken these words, he went out with his disciples over the brook Kidron, where there was a garden, which he and his disciples entered. And Judas, who betrayed him, also knew the place, for Jesus often met there with his disciples. Then Judas, having received a detachment of troops and officers from the chief priests and Pharisees, came there with lanterns, torches, and weapons. Jesus, therefore, knowing all things that would come upon him, went forward and said to them, whom are you seeking? They answered him, Jesus of Nazareth. He said to them, I am he. And Judas, who betrayed him, also stood with them. Now when he had said, I am he, they drew back and fell to the ground. Then he asked them again, who are you seeking? They said, Jesus of Nazareth. Jesus answered, I've told you that I'm he. Therefore, if you seek me, let these go their way, that the saying might be fulfilled which he spoke. Of those whom you gave me, I have lost none. Then Simon Peter, having a sword, drew it and struck the high priest's servant and cut off his right ear. The servant's name was Malchus. So Jesus said to Peter, put your sword into your sheath. Shall I not drink the cup which my Father has given to me? Then the detachment of troops and the captain and the officers of the Jews arrested Jesus and bound him. And they led him away to Annas first, for he was the father-in-law of Caiaphas, who was high priest that year. Now it was Caiaphas who advised the Jews that it was expedient that one man should die for the people. And Simon Peter followed Jesus, and so did another disciple. Now that disciple was known to the high priest, and went with Jesus into the courtyard of the high priest. But Peter stood at the door outside. Then the other disciple, who was known to the high priest, went out and spoke to her who kept the door, and he brought Peter in. Then the servant girl who kept the door said to Peter, you're not also one of this man's disciples, are you? He said, I am not. Now the servants and officers who had made a fire of coals stood there, for it was cold, and they warmed themselves. And Peter stood with them and warmed himself. The high priest then asked Jesus about his disciples and his doctrine. Jesus answered them, I spoke openly to you. I spoke openly to the world. I always taught in synagogues and in the temple, where the Jews always meet, and in secret I have said nothing. Why do you ask me? Ask those who have heard me what I said to them. Indeed, they know what I say. And when he had said these things, one of the officers who stood by struck Jesus with the palm of his hand, saying, Do you answer the high priest like that? Jesus answered him, If I have spoken evil, bear witness of that evil. But if well, why do you strike me? Then Annas sent him bound to Caiaphas, the high priest. Now Simon Peter stood and warmed himself. Therefore they said to him, You are not also one of his disciples, are you? And he denied it and said, I am not. One of the servants of the high priest, a relative of him whose ear Peter cut off, said, Did I not see you in the garden with him? Peter then denied again, and immediately a rooster crowed. There's a lot there, and you could look at different aspects of that, different characters in play here. But I want to focus on Peter and the opportunities he had to spend for Christ. That's not a term we use very much, but if something costs something, then you have to spend, right? So I'd like to use that term, spend for Christ. Like, what are you spending for Christ? What is costing you? Later in Acts, we'll look at it, but after they had been beaten and told never to speak in the name of Jesus again, they went out rejoicing, right? Because they had been worthy to suffer for Jesus. That's a different sort of mentality, a different sort of idea, thinking, like walking towards the cost and saying, this is something I want to pay, something I want to lay down. Okay, so we start out here in Mark. I don't know if you still have your finger there or not, but in verse 29 of 14, Peter says, even if all are made to stumble, yet I will not be. And so I want to ask you, like, in Peter's mind, how far away do you think this was? This can be your own opinion. Way out? I mean, Jesus had told them he was going to be killed. He said, we're going to go up to Jerusalem and the Son of Man is going to be delivered into the hands of the people. And do you think the disciples knew? You don't think they comprehended it? How far out do you think they thought this was going to be? Indefinite.
They didn't know when.
Yeah, okay, that's fair.
They were young then.
They were young.
I think of even when I think of like the return of Christ, I have a constant like mindset that's way out there
Mm-hmm.
that I struggle with. And so I think if I was in his shoes and Jesus said that to me, I would have that mindset. It's way out there.
Pretty far out.
Yeah, it's pretty far out.
That's what it seems like. Another account, he says, if I have to go to prison or even to death, it's like this huge thing, right? I mean, they're in the garden, like nothing's happening. They're praying. It's night. They just had the Passover together. How far away do you think that was? How far away do you think they thought that was? Okay, and then we're here in John. And this drama happens. Judas shows up. These men, these soldiers show up. And there's this conflict. And Peter loves Jesus, right? I mean, we know how much he loves Jesus. A lot. And Peter's there like, yes, I'll pull out my sword. Let's go. and he's got this energy. And then what does Jesus say to Peter after he pulls out the sword and cuts off the guy's ear? What does Jesus say? Put it away. He says, put away your sword. How do you think that made Peter feel? He had this zeal that came out of love, like this is my Lord. This is the guy I love. And I'm just trying to defend him. And Jesus is like, put it away. Man. And Jesus is arrested and he's taken. It says in one account that they all forsook him. Actually, I think all three of the other accounts say that they all forsook him. And then Simon Peter and this other disciple, I'm not sure who it was, but they follow Jesus, and they go into the high priest's court, and Jesus is just there on the other side of the door being tried, and Peter's here. He's not been let in yet, and he's just, I can imagine the conflict in his heart. Like, he loves Jesus, he wants to be with him, he wants to know what's going on in there, but at the same time, Jesus just rebuked him, and there's danger involved, right? And then, this is the part I want us to focus on. Think about how this cost of discipleship was out there far, and then now all of a sudden it's here. And this servant girl, who even is this? Someone who keeps the door? Servant girl who kept the door said to Peter, "You're not also one of this man's disciples, are you?" In that moment, he has a choice to make, right? Like, he's about to be let in. The other disciple had come and spoken to the girl and said to let him in. He's about to come in. And the girl's like, "Wait a minute. You're one of his disciples, aren't you?" And he's like, "No." It's so small. Like, it's so small. Right? It's a servant girl. She's keeping the door. It's not even like a cross. It's not like a grand martyrdom being burned at the stake. It's just a servant girl. What does that even matter? Says, "Aren't you one of his disciples too?" What could Peter have done? This reminds me of Daniel's message talking about Shama, make standing great again. Love that phrase. Peter could have said, "Absolutely, I'm Jesus' disciple. I'm his best disciple." But he said, "I'm not." And then he's let in the door. What might it have cost him? Like, if he said, "Oh, yes, I am one of his disciples." Like, do you think they wouldn't have let him in? I don't know. One of his disciples was already in there, wasn't he? I don't think it would have cost a lot. I don't think he would have been killed on the spot. Now the servants and officers, this is verse 18. Now the servants and officers who had made a fire of coals stood there, for it was cold, and they warmed themselves. And Peter stood with them and warmed himself. So he's in the courtyard, and there's a fire there, and it's cold out. At this point, it's still night. This may have been a couple hours since Jesus was arrested, maybe less. This is the night, it's cold, and there's a fire, and they're standing around the fire, enjoying the warmth. And Peter's second chance comes. Standing around, and they say, well, in between here, from 19 to 24, is a conversation with the high priest and Jesus. But if you jump down to 25, now Simon Peter stood and warmed himself. Therefore they said to him, you're not also one of his disciples, are you? Okay? Again, where's the cost? It's not out there. It's not far. He's in a comfortable place. He's by the fire. Jesus is not far. And in one of the accounts, it says that after these things, that Jesus looked up and looked at Peter. So Jesus was probably right there. This is perfect. I mean, great scenario. Peter's here. He's kind of with Jesus. He's able to be close, and he's by a fire, and it's warm. And another chance for him to spend for Christ comes. And it's not far, it's close. Aren't you one of his disciples too? And he denied it and said, I am not. Again, this is such a small thing. I want to draw our attention to like the nearness of this. Like, we're not being asked to give our lives, or even our parents, or even our families. I mean, maybe some of us are, but maybe not. So what is the cost? Like, how close is it? Like, how small is it in our minds? Verse 26, one of the servants of the high priest, a relative of him whose ear Peter cut off, said, did I not see you in the garden with him? Peter then denied again. So then, now you have this another conflict, right? This is so interesting. It says a relative of him whose ear Peter cut off. So somebody related to Malchus, right? And what's the cost in his mind? Like, here's this guy. Like, what if you had cut somebody's ear off, and then their relative comes and says, wait, didn't I see you there? Weren't you there with Jesus when that happened? Like, oh. So again, it's like, well, like, who even is this guy? He's a servant. And he's just a nobody. Like, what does it really matter if I just say no? But this was a denial of Christ himself. It's so small. And Peter denied again, and the rooster crowed. Jesus looks at him, and Peter goes out and he weeps. How does it say he wept? Bitterly. I don't think Peter forgot this very easily. I don't think he forgot it ever. Peter actually later on, according to tradition, he had the privilege to be crucified for Christ as well. And that was a great cost, but I don't think how shall I say this? There's something here that was born in him that grew. When it came for him to be crucified, I speculate, I don't know, I speculate he did it with joy. He went to the cross with confidence and devotion, finding himself privileged. think there were probably things that built up between now and that point. Little things, small things, small times of just standing and say, absolutely, I'm Jesus' disciple. I'm his best disciple. I'd like to talk about some personal examples from my life of what this means. And I ask you to please don't get hung up on the specifics. These are things that I have a problem with, things that trip me up, that are my weakness. And don't go saying, oh, well, Joshua thinks such and such is bad because, take my example and put in your own example. What is it in your life that is difficult for you right now? Small thing that's difficult. Put that in your mind and take that to heart. Don't get tripped up on my own things. Something that has been a opportunity, how shall I say this? An opportunity for me to spend for Christ many times is YouTube. Something so simple, commonplace to us every day. Right? YouTube. Ever since I got my phone, it's been something difficult for me. I have times, let me back up. I've spent hours wasted on YouTube, right? Wasting my mental energy and my time just watching video after video. Okay? I'm not proud of that. And so I might say to myself, and I have before many times, oh, okay, I'm just not going to watch YouTube ever again. I just put it away. And then something might come across WhatsApp, a status, or somebody sends me a video or a song, and it's on YouTube. So I click on it, watch the video. It's a good video. Glad I watched it. And then there's other videos. I watch those, and I fall into the trap farther. And it's so deceptive because it's not something necessarily sinful per se, or not blatantly sinful, right? It can be very good things. But for me, it was a time waster. And I would have opportunities to escape, right? When you're watching something, at least for me, you're locked in and you're just going and you're going. And then there's like this little thing that, oh, hey, you can stop. And you can just keep going. Oh, hey, you can stop. I think it's the grace of God that we have those little thoughts that come in. Sometimes I think God speaks so loudly that we have to drown him out with things in order to not hear him. Okay? But let me take you back to the first little thing. Okay, that somebody shares a video and it's a good thing. And I say, well, I want to see that video, so therefore I'm going to click on it and watch it, knowing that there's a danger, right? Okay, well, that's fine. Or is it? Is this an opportunity for me to spend for Christ? It seems so small. It's like, well, what does it even matter? It's just like one video. And it's a good video. It might be somebody preaching. It might be a good song, right? And please don't get hung up on this example, because this is me. This is not you. If you don't have a problem with YouTube, put something else in there in your mind and let that go in your mind. And so I've come to realize, well, maybe I can spend that. This can be my cost. I can just say, well, I'm not going to watch any videos on YouTube, and let that to be, at least for this period of time, and to let that go. And so when something comes across that everyone else is watching, or so I think, and I can be the one person who says, I'm not going to, because of Christ because I want to be a disciple of Christ, and this is a problem for me, right? It's like so small. We think that like we can be Christians and we can do these great things and we can go out and we can die for Christ. And then little things trip us up. Little things pull us back. I think it's in Hebrews that says, the weights which so easily beset us. So easily. It's not something hard. It's not something we like decide, okay, I'm gonna pick up this weight. No, it's just little things. Another thing is overeating. Sometimes I'll be eating and it'll come into my mind, oh, hey, now's a good time to stop. And you brush it off, or you say, well, that dessert, that's something I've never had that one before. Looks so good. It's so small. It's almost like something we don't comprehend. I almost never comprehend it until you start looking for it and saying, hey, this can be my cost. Like, this can be my cost. I cannot have dessert today, and that'll be for Christ. Don't you think he wants sacrifices like that? Like little things we bring? Another one is devotions. I want to have devotions with God each morning. And I have a set amount of time that I have for that, right? Well, sometimes I wake up and I'm tired, really tired, because I went to bed late last night. And I, take a shower, maybe spend a long time in the shower, just relaxing, but before I know it, well, there's a certain time I have to leave for work, and I need to eat breakfast. And so my time for devotions is like, it gets smaller and smaller until it's to where it's gone or it's just very short. Say, well, this is not. There's plenty of excuses, right? Say, oh, well, me having devotion is not like a requirement for me. It's just something I do out of love, right? So if I skip it one day, it's okay. Okay? And then we'll back up to the evening before. Well, why are you tired? Well, because I went to bed late. Well, why did you go to bed late? Because I was doing things on my phone. I had things to do, right? I was spending time with the family. Dinner was late, right? There's like, you can have a multitude of things there that like, okay, well, instead, how about I think about this like, I want to have my time with Christ, so I'm going to give up these things in the evening. I'm going to put down my phone. I'm going to go to bed on time so that I'm rested, so that I have a time with God. It's so small. So small. I'd like for us to shift our mindset. Christianity can be thought of as things you do and things you don't do. This and that. You do these things, you don't do those things. Christianity is a relationship. And let's have the things that we do or don't do be little sacrifices. There's a story in 2 Samuel that I really love one of the phrases from. And I'll just paraphrase the story for you. Israel had sinned in a great way, and God had punished them with a plague. God was killing off the people. I think 70,000 men had been killed. And David said, Lord, he was a king at the time. He said, Lord, let the punishment be upon me and not upon the people. And he had come to this man's house, and he said, "Hey, is there anything for me to sacrifice? Is there a place for me to sacrifice and bring a sacrifice to God?" And the man had said, "Of course, you can have my threshing floor, and you can have this oxen, and you can have wood." And David said, "Can I buy it from you?" And he said, "No, just take it. It's all yours." And David said, "No, I will not sacrifice something that costs me nothing. I will not sacrifice something that costs me nothing." And he bought the things from the man, and he made a sacrifice to the Lord. What if we thought about our lives like that? With costs. I won't sacrifice something that costs me nothing. And back to the fact that we live in America and discipleship seems to cost almost nothing. Seems to. I think it really could cost us a lot if we were faithful in the little things that God gives us. Let's not be satisfied with just discipleship that is just kind of here, kind of there, kind of whatever. That's what secular, or should I say, mainstream Christianity, they preach this. All you need to do is believe in Jesus, and your life can pretty much go on being whatever, and it's not really going to cost you much. Let us not give a sacrifice that costs us nothing. One last thing I want to look at is in Acts 5. I kind of mentioned this already, but I hope that this can be kind of the cry of what I'm saying today. We can use these men as an example. By the way, Jesus is an excellent example of this. We didn't really look at it, but of course he is. He's perfect. But if you look at how he handled cost, like how he spent and gave, sometimes he'd be in front of the high priest, or I forget who it was exactly, and they say, "Well, this man, he claimed he was going to destroy the temple and build it in 3 days." When Jesus said that, what was he talking about? His body. He said, "Well, this man, he claimed to destroy our temple." What an accusation. Jesus was silent. You know how much of a fool he must have looked like? A complete fool. What does he think he's doing? He's going to destroy the temple? Jesus could have been, and rightly and justly been, like, "Hey guys, actually I was talking about something else." No, he looked like a fool. He was shamed. Jesus does it perfectly. It's amazing. I love how he does it. Sorry, looking back to Acts 4. Getting distracted. Acts 5. I'm sorry. Acts 5, 40 to 41. So they had just been beaten. They had just been flogged. And they agreed with him. And this was authorities. They agreed with him. When they had called for the apostles and beaten them, they commanded them that they should not speak in the name of Jesus, and let them go. So they departed from the presence of the council, rejoicing that they were kind of worthy to suffer shame for his name. Do you think that opportunity is past? Do you think that opportunity is beyond our time? Like, that God gave that opportunity to them, but then, now the Christians in the modern America, they don't have that opportunity. I'm just going to make their lives easy. I don't think so. So that's about all I have to say. Just one thing. And I pray that our lives could just grow into a deeper devotion, and we could focus on little small things, little small opportunities. Think about Peter and how he could have been there, like standing up to the servant girl. Well, how might that have affected her, right? To the servant girl, say, absolutely, I'm a disciple of Jesus.